Thank you for being part of this journey. Celebrating 2 decades of Pacific stories. Brought to you by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community. Nisam Bulavinaka, Talo Falava, glad you could join us for the Pacific Way. In April 2015, health ministers from Pacific Island countries and territories met on Yanuza Island in Fiji for the 11th Pacific Health Ministers meeting. The first health meeting took place on the same island 20 years ago, and 2 decades later, the journey has taken the ministers back to Fiji, and healthy islands remain the overarching vision. Let's have a look.
Beyond the image of white sandy beaches and carefree lifestyles, the Pacific Islands are facing serious health problems. Over the years, numerous studies and reports have documented the impacts of changing lifestyle and people. Today, more than 2.4 million in the Pacific region are affected by non-communicable diseases or NCDs. For these children, an early start to an active physical lifestyle is a way forward.
My favorite change that I see in the students is during recess, they used to, when we arrived, they would spend a lot of time just wandering. They didn't really have things that they would do. Now we see them play the games that they've learned at recess, after school. When we walk through the villages, we see them playing with their friends. So they've become more active at school, but more importantly, they've become more active at home.
On April 2015, health ministers from Pacific Island countries and territories converged on Yanuza Island, an inhabited coral island in Fiji's Lomaiviti archipelago, for the 11th Pacific Health Ministers meeting. 20 years ago, the first meeting took place on the same island, where the ministers adopted the vision of healthy islands as the unifying theme for healthy promotion and health protection. 2 decades later, the journey has taken the ministers back to Fiji, and healthy islands remained the overarching vision.
As you're aware, we had the first of this Pacific Health Ministers meeting here in 1995. So it's quite a historic achievement to be able to have it back here in Yanuza 20 years later. This particular Yanuza Declaration has been now referred to as the 2015 Yanuza Island Declaration. And in this declaration, the ministers who have been in attendance, they have once again reaffirmed our commitment to that original vision that was articulated and put in place 20 years ago.
The 2-day meeting hosted by the Fiji government provided an opportunity for the ministers and representatives from development and international organizations to reflect on the Healthy Islands journey and examine achievements, challenges, and the way forward. The meeting was supported by the World Health Organization, WHO, and the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, SPC.
I think the Healthy Islands vision, we have the potential to show the world what a healthy community, a healthy society, a healthy island might look like. So the vision crafted 20 years ago here at the spiritual home of the Healthy Islands vision is a fantastic statement from our predecessors and our colleagues.
We had a fruitful kind of result and outcomes, and then we promised for coming maybe 20 years and more, or we reaffirm our commitment and for the Healthy Island visions.
The ministers recognized that the Pacific is facing mounting health challenges, amongst these non-communicable disease.
One of these areas, of course, is non-communicable diseases. It is no secret that Pacific Islands and the Pacific region in general is unfortunately the leader in many of these issues related to non-communicable diseases. We have the most obese nations, we have the highest prevalence of diabetes in many Pacific nations. We have very high prevalence of smoking, particularly in women. We have a high death attributed to non-communicable diseases.
It's very important because the healthy island concept is probably the best concept that we can use in order to deal with preventive health and primary health care in our setting of low resources. So in order to be able to utilize as best as possible our resources, we can go with the island setting when we have partners in the community to help us move the health in order to have a healthy population.
For District School along Singatoka Town near the western side of Fiji, the visit to the school by the ministers and participants were an inspiration to these children.
Very much impressed and touched by this healthy school movement, and then the services in Frontline Health Center, how to taking care of Fijian people in their non-communicable disease, and also each village had their own strong commitment, community based on all this self-reliance.
The meeting was deemed a success, with ministers reaffirming their commitment to Healthy Islands vision despite the mounting challenges ahead.
The discussion moved towards relooking at our legislation, meaning our public health acts, tobacco decrees and all those things. There was a feeling yesterday that there's a lot of advocacy going out, but we need the legislative changes. Look, most of our public health acts and legislation is out of date. Samoa was saying theirs is 1950 and ours was 1930. That time there was no NCD. Now we're in an NCD crisis. We need the legislation to respond appropriately to what is happening in the Pacific.
Recognition was given to Pacific Island countries and territories for more ownership to guide health development and chart the way forward towards the realization of the Healthy Islands vision.
SPC is committed, as are the other partners, to addressing these issues, because it is recognized that if you do not address non-communicable diseases, the development goals and development aspirations of Pacific Island countries and territories will not be recognized.
The vision remains as relevant and powerful now as it was during the first meeting in Yanuda for a healthy journey towards the future.
Welcome back. You're watching The Pacific Way. In the outlying states of Palau, the availability and access to an adequate supply of quality water has drastically degraded over the last few decades. This is a huge concern as residents on these islands learn to cope with the climate-related challenges around them. To address this, the Secretariat of the Pacific Community has partnered with the European Union, Palau's national and state governments and local communities to improve water quality, access and availability of both groundwater and rainwater storage systems in Palau's 5 outlying island states. Let's find out more.
Pacific Island nation of Palau, serious efforts are underway to enhance water security in the remote, outlying states, as residents there are learning to cope with climate variability and change. One such effort is the European Union-funded Global Climate Change Alliance Pacific Small Island States project, currently being implemented by the government of Palau with assistance from the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, SPC. This is the first project to comprehensively try to address water security in all 5 outlying island states, each of which faces unique water-related challenges relating to existing water infrastructure, topography, accessibility, and climate variability. The distance from Kayengol in the north to Hatobai in the south is more than 300 miles. The 2 southernmost states of Hatobai and Sunterol are the most remote, with irregular boat schedules and rough sea conditions, resulting in water storage tanks running dry on occasion.
One of the big part of the project is to get the people aware of quality, making sure that they're protecting their drinking water sources. If it's the catchment, then we're installing leaf feeders and first flush devices, which help keep the dirt and all the stuff that's on top of the roof from getting into the rainwater tank. Over the years, because of some lack of maintenance, it's hard out here in the islands to find parts. 3 of the outer islands in Palau have water systems, and the problems that we've been facing over the years is just repairing of the leaks. We're trying to standardize stuff within the corporation, with the Palau Public Utilities Corporation, and so hopefully the project will get these guys certified so they can operate and maintain those systems. We're going through all of them, checking for leaks and making the necessary repairs. And we've gone so far as to repair the leaks in the individual homes.
In Toby, it started to have drought for the past 3 months. We have wells on the island, but it's brackish water. For drinking, people depend on coconut. We're really thankful to the European Union to give us tanks that can hold up to, we can stretch that water in there for a year if we really conserve the water.
And it's been a long time in Angar, since when there's no rain. We always get the water from school for drinking. And it's almost 3 months, I think. There's no rain. It's very dry. And also we don't drink the water from the faucet because the water is no good. There is something in the water and also it smells. Sometimes the people drink that water from faucet, they get sick because there is no filter to make it clean. Sometimes the people from Koro always come here to check the water. They try their best to make it clean so the people in Angar can drink it.
A lot of partnerships was happening as we began the project. The one that made a really big difference is with the U.S. Civic Action Team. They actually went all the way down to the island and spending a whole week working on an existing tank.
So one of the key challenges had to do with the merging of the water and sewage in combination with the electric company. Combined together, it became the Palau Public Utilities Corporation. When we reached a point where there was no movement in the project, we would actually make time to meet with the CEO, for example, of the PPUC, and also with the governors representing their states, and figure out that fine line of what can be done within both framework. And what helped us really bridge the gap was clear and consistent communication.
Some of the islands, actually 2 of them, the southernmost, are pretty far, close to 300 miles, and they don't have their own transportation, so they have to hire private boats to take them down on regular state visits. Island situation, we have to, from the dive boat, transport materials to the island on a smaller speedboat, an 18-footer, 5 tons of material. It took us almost 2 days to go back and forth. And this is also weather dependent and tide dependent.
In November 2013, Typhoon Haiyan struck Palau, causing great devastation, especially in the northernmost state of Cayenne.
Part of the project, we sped up purchasing of pumps to get them back online, and a backup generator to help them to help power those pumps and at least have water for the people as they were rebuilding.
Besides working in the water sector, the Global Climate Change Alliance Pacific Small Island States project has provided support to Palau, together with other development partners, to prepare a national climate change policy, which is backed up by an action plan and budget.
First time at the national level, we've convened input from various stakeholders to develop a climate change policy. This policy was developed over a 2-year period, maybe even longer than that, with extensive consultations, government agencies, communities, private sector, and individuals. By the end of that consultation, we were able to not only provide a sort of direction for how to move forward with our climate change, how to address climate change impacts presently as well as in the years to come. In addition to helping us to address climate change impacts, the policy also helps us by providing guidance and targets on how to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
People are being relocated to higher grounds because their islands are disappearing as a result of sea level rise. We don't have to convince ourselves about the effects of the typhoons, the natural disasters. Geez, we used to feel sorry for our neighbors in Guam and Saipan. And now we've had 2 typhoons in a row to Palau. So, you know, the biggest predictability is the unpredictability of it.
One of the objectives of the climate change policy is to ensure that every person in Palau understands the nature of climate change, its impacts, and what they can do individually, as well as the actions that need to be taken at a national and international level to reduce its impacts.
And that's all we have time for tonight. If you'd like to find out more, please do pay us a visit on YouTube and on Facebook. Now, just before we go, we leave you with a special message by the Director General of the Pacific Community, Dr. Colin Tukuitonga, for the upcoming United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP21, in Paris in November. Until next week, fuomos, airera, ni samuade.
Mama, me calling you all Sam. Long God, you must stand up. Today, hear me belong you.
This is a crucial time for Pacific people. Our region is at the sharp end of the climate crisis, despite the very small contribution of Pacific people to global emissions of harmful greenhouse gases. The impacts of climate change on food and water security, oceans, health, and tourism present a range of complex challenges for small island states here and around the world. Research points to serious negative changes that could emerge due to climate change, especially for coral reefs and coastal fisheries. The upcoming United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP21, presents a significant opportunity for the global community to act decisively. What's clear is that the outcomes from Paris will have profound impacts on the lives and livelihoods of Pacific people, affecting the future survival of Pacific Island countries and territories with no exceptions. We need a legally binding treaty with mitigation reductions that are ambitious enough to ensure the long-term survival and viability of our small islands everywhere. The Secretariat of the Pacific Community is one of many partners assisting island member states to prepare for and adapt to climate change and its impact. Appropriate adaptation mechanisms can be developed when we understand the science and apply our observations and traditional knowledge. Our sense of unity and resilient spirit can only take us so far when it comes to responding to climate change. The financial and technical support of wealthier nations is essential for small islands. We need to work together to expand the support so that we can respond urgently and sufficiently to the social, economic, and security impacts of climate change before it's too late.
Together we're stronger.
Thank you for being part of this journey. Celebrating 2 decades of Pacific Stories. Brought to you by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community.